and hurt others. And that is why the men's fellowship from PCITC International Transformation Center thought it was important to have this conversation. And they brought together a wonderful panel of speakers. We're now going to introduce our first speaker in this conversation, Man Upon TalkUp, Leadership Excellence in the Church, in the family, and in the home. Let's now meet our first speaker.
Hello, good afternoon. Mr. Ellis, are you ready for me? Your audio is off.
You're going to be introduced officially.
Got it. I just wanted to know because there was a pause there. Go ahead, please.
Right. We're going to bring your official introduction. Play the intro, selector.
Our first presenter is an executive leadership coach, internationally acclaimed keynote speaker, employee engagement coach, writer, and executive director of Global Empowerment Institute. He is the author of several books, including the best-selling If Caterpillars Can Fly, So Can I, plus Persuasion Power and more. For over 25 years, he has delivered exceptional and transformational results, serving clients from Boston and Buenos Aires to Barcelona, Bangkok, and Beijing. His extensive list of international clients include global brands like Ashland in Spain, Pepsi Argentina, Colgate-Palmolive Mexico, Unilever Canada, Valvoline China, and the NBC Universal Studios USA. From his wealth of personal experiences and professional engagements, he continues to excite audiences with a fire in the belly passion for excellence. His work has led to one company earning $200 million, a prisoner changing his mind about killing a man, a businesswoman changing her mind about suicide, a healthcare worker doubling his income, and a Harvard University dropout going back to school immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, adults and children, get ready to be ignited and inspired by Mr. Alvin Day.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, and hello to everyone. Mr. Ellis, thank you so much. You're so gracious. And I want to acknowledge all of the leaders who are a part of this session, who conceived it and who did the work to make it manifest. With all of you acknowledged, I say thank you for the opportunity to share this afternoon, this evening. I'm excited about the notion that we are speaking about men, and we're speaking about men from the perspective of leadership, because those two go so well together, and yet not everyone necessarily sees that they do or lives up to that notion. I am going to share with you a screen, and I'm going to do a test here just to ensure that that screen is being shared effectively. So let me go back and say, Mr. Ellis, are you seeing the screen that shows my first slide?
Yes, I'm seeing your screen, sir.
Lovely. Thank you.
Nice
for
and pretty.
Thank you for confirming that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, and I don't know, there may be a few ladies here. I know that the typical member of this audience is a man. I have many things I want to share with you today, and so I will jump right in very quickly so that we can be responsible in the time allotted, and you are as busy as each of us speakers is. And so I want to begin with the notion that man was made by God. Unlike the animals who were spoken into being on the trees, man was made by the hand of God, who formed him out of raw material. And when God made man, there was something different about him. And there was even something different from the woman, because the woman was made from live tissue, that was the bone. Man came out of dirt. I mean, man is a basic elemental creature, and it is no wonder that you have so much trouble with your woman when she tells you you can't put your foot up there and you need to keep the dining room clean and you need to wash the dishes and so forth, because she was made out of living tissue and you were made out of dirt. But you came out of an incredibly creative process that took that which was not and made that which is. And not only did God make you with his hands, make me with his hands, but he imbued you with incredible power. And in fact, in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, I think it is, it says that the Lord charged his people to wait until they be imbued with power. And that power was given by the Spirit of God in man. And way back in the beginning, and there was power again, because when God made man, he gave him dominion over the earth and the animals and the trees that he had spoken into being. So there's much of energy and strength and power surrounding man. Women of the species have power as well. But here we're talking about the initial creation, the man. And so we have dominion, and we're strong, and we have upper body strength, and we have muscles and so forth. And yet, I find that there are two ways to express and live with that strength. One of them is to be a force of aggression and of destruction and of being a bull in a china shop. After all, we were made from dirt, and when we express ourselves without care, we can wreck things because we are strong. And our culture, not just in Jamaica, but in the Western world, our culture is one where the men are the ones who are rambunctious and strong and kind of bustle their way through society often, unless they are professionally coached or spiritually changed. But there's another way for a man to express that strength, and it is through kindness and gentleness and vulnerability. Now, herein lies the rub. That doesn't sound like the men that we grew up hearing about. Your little boys need to be tough. You can't cry. What's wrong with you, boy? You know, be a man, man up. And part of the challenge that we have in society is that the men who are under such pressure, when they express their strengths, it is not acceptable for them to express their strengths as much to be gentle and vulnerable and kind as it is acceptable for them to be strong and rugged and sometimes even crude. But you know, it was not God's intention for us to be a destructive power. It was God's intention for us to be the gentle power that changes life. And when he tried to get us to do that through the Old Testament and giving us all those laws that were designed to change our thoughts and our spirit, our mind, we only basically did it in terms of our behavior. So we had the scribes and Pharisees who did all this stuff, but their hearts were not changed. The heart of the matter is, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, that God wants us to be gentle presence of power. And he finally decided we can't get the idea. So he's going to send us a living example. He himself became a manifest human being in the body of Jesus Christ and came to earth and showed us what it was like to be powerful and retain that power and show kindness until ultimately necessary for us to show it in an aggressive way. And we still have not gotten it. The greatest man, in expressing his strength, can afford to be gentle and kind and vulnerable. Now, with that much of an introduction to the notion, let's talk about leadership, because you see, leadership also connotes the idea that I'm on top of the pile and my followers are here to serve me. We certainly see that in my corporate clients. I work with massive corporations around the world, including Jamaica, financial institutions, consumer institutions, consumer packaged goods companies, and so forth. And leadership needs help because the leaders, men and women, think that leadership connotes aggressive force and strength and authoritarian positions. And yet the greatest of these leaders and managers and the greatest of fathers are ones who lead from heart, like Jesus Christ did. I want to talk with you a little bit about this notion, therefore, of leadership. It is a wonderful thing because we were made to lead. We were made to be in charge, but to be in charge with a spirit of gentleness and kindness and faith and all of those wonderful, wonderful virtues that we read in the Bible. If you decide that at the end of this conversation or after thinking about it and studying yourself, you want to be a gentle, kind, and transparent, vulnerable leader, you're going to face a tremendous amount of back pressure because society does not expect that. Society wants you to be rugged. I spoke with a Jamaican young man one day who said to me, Mr. Day, I know a young man, you know, I know a man, and the man nice. But Mr. Day, I don't like one man too nice and have too much manners, you know, man nothing nice like that. And even though we know sometimes men can become effeminate, there is in fact that built-in part of the culture that says men are not supposed to be kind and gentle and thoughtful. So let's talk about this for a moment. you as a man have primary responsibilities to lead. And in many of the cases, I'm talking about family, you have a spouse, you have children, and the place of your leadership begins in the home. In Acts, it talks about God, about Jesus Christ commissioning his disciples and saying, go into all the world. And he says, I give you power. And he says, be witnesses unto me in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. Now, he didn't say, be witnesses unto me into the uttermost parts of the world or into the city next door. He started right where they lived, right here in Jerusalem. This is where leadership begins. This is where your manhood validates itself, right where you are, and it begins in the home. It begins in the home. So long before you think you are a wonderful person because you're great at work, you better be great at home, because your greatness at work has skipped a step, which invalidates it. There are too many men I know, and too many times it happens with me, where I have accolades from my workplace and people think I'm wonderful, but I work so much and I don't pay enough attention to my spouse and my family, so that when I come home, all of that honor disappears because they just see me as somebody who doesn't care about them. I only care about being out there working with the strangers to them. So if you want to be a great man, if you want to be a great leader, a father and a husband, remember that it does you no good in the long run to be a great leader at work and a poor leader at home. First in Jerusalem, then down the road in Judea, then you can go as far as Samaria. And that gives you the right, therefore, to take the message to the world, to be an itinerant preacher who travels the world and has people falling at his feet, who when he comes home causes great concern and their quarrels and fights. It invalidates the work that he does on the road. Your focus should first be at home. Now, I said it begins at home, and that's true. But may I get a little bit more troublesome? You do not have the right to lead people, or to say you're going to lead people beginning at home, until you first learn how to lead yourself. I tell you a quick story. Some of you might have heard this story before. Like me, you sit on an airplane and a woman comes up and says, it was in this case a woman, ladies and gentlemen, in the unlikely event that this aircraft should begin to lose pressure, a mask will fall from the compartment above you. If this should happen, reach out with both arms, grasp the nearest mask, put it over your nose and mouth, and begin to breathe normally. If you're traveling with a child or someone who needs assistance, put your own mask on first and then assist the other person. And I want you to ponder that set of priorities. What in the world would tell Delta Airlines and JetBlue and Caribbean Airlines that you should not take care of the people who are in need first? Isn't it selfish, the height of egotism, to say, I got to take care of number one before I help this flailing child who's dying because the child cannot reach the mask? And if you think about it, the fundamental principle of life and existence and thriving and cherishing is that in order for you to be a help to anybody else, you must first be a help to yourself. Because if in this case, you don't have life-giving oxygen in your lungs, and you try to help those who are around you need help, chances are likely that both of you will die. All three of you will die. But if you say, let me go away and work on myself first, and the person who has had to wait is even suffocating, you can resuscitate the person because you have life in your lungs. Am I making sense to you? So leadership begins in the home, but it really begins with you. If you want to be a great person with a legacy that causes people to call you blessed and remember what you when you're gone, if you want to know that the day when you die, people will not cry for a couple of days and then turn the page and forget about you because you haven't left a legacy of value to your community, it begins right here where you are. And I ask you some questions which for some people can be troubling. When last did you work on yourself? When last did you spend time and money to examine your personality, examine your life purpose and figure out why you were born, the talents and skills that make you light up? Why did God take his hands and go down in the dirt to make you? You're not a factory product that is like all the others that come off the assembly line. You were uniquely designed. God said he knew you before the foundation of the earth. Now, what kind of creature are you? You must be a creature on purpose. The dog was spoken into being. The tree was spoken into being. God made you with his hands. When last did you work on you? You have a job. You're a good provider. Good. You're taking care of food, shelter, and clothing. Are you taking care of you? When last did you stop and work on you, your communication skills, your personality? your talents, your dreams and hopes and expectations, so that you can be filled up with this poise and this clarity about your life. Because until you are filled up with good things and virtues and peace, things like peace and forgiveness and tolerance and so forth, you cannot give those things to others. The Bible says one of the greatest things that you can possibly do is to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, by the way, if you don't have love for yourself, you cannot love me. You cannot love your child. Because mark it down when I tell you, you cannot give fullness from an empty place. If you want to feed the hungry and you have no money or no food in your pantry, with what will you feed them? If you want to encourage your child to stick to the task and study when things get hard, but you have no patience and you have no perseverance, how are you going to persuade your child that this is a good thing? Because after all, your children won't listen to what you say. They listen to what you do. And I can say, ouch, because I'm a father of 2 children, and there are many times when I violate these very principles about which I speak. Let me say it again. Your children do not listen to what you say, they listen to what you do. And sometimes they think you hypocrite, they think me hypocrite, because what I say and what I do are not the same. So when last did you work on you to fill yourself up with the knowledge and the skills and the wisdom and the insight and the self-awareness and the poise and the balance and the appreciation and the charm and the thankfulness that create a well-rounded human being whose life is working out just fine? I'm not talking about the circumstances around you. All hell can break loose around you and you can still have poise and charm and thankfulness, so long as it doesn't crush your body. Your mind is at peace with the peace of God that passes understanding. When last did you work on you? I didn't plan to spend all the time on this, but when last did you spend time working on you? You're there taking care of your employees. You're making sure that they're doing fine through the pandemic. You're making sure that the resources are there. You're getting the budget to take care of the computers they need in the homes and so forth. You're giving your time. When last did you spend time working on you? Because until you work on you and get yourself into a place of poise and balance, your children are going to suffer for it, and your spouse is going to suffer for it, for the lack of it. I hope this is making sense to somebody. Because we must get our priorities right. Before you help a child, put your own mask on first. Leadership then. I take a source where it says leadership is the process of social influence. Now that you are ready, now that you've taken care of yourself, you can exert social influence in which you as a person can enlist the aid and support of others to accomplish common goals, common outcomes. We as a family, we want to be educated, we want to be economically viable, we want to have fun, we want to have peace of mind, we want to be prepared to have a life outside of the home when the children go away. My wife needs to be comfortable when I'm not there, as well as when I'm there. My husband needs to be, and so forth. If you're a woman, this is leadership. It is co-opting voluntarily the aid of others so that we can establish our personal goals and all work consistently toward them. It's the effort to influence the behavior of others or members of a group in order to accomplish organizational, individual, and personal goals. This is another source. So this is a family unit. It's like a company. It's an entity with an outcome. And are you prepared to lead that process? So I ask these questions because I want to trouble you into thinking about your life. You were given children, if those of you who have children, you were given children in raw form. They came up as babies, they didn't know what they were doing. And it is your job to transform them from bumbling babies who pee themselves in public and grab people's foods in restaurants and scream for mama to breastfeed them, even though there may be strangers around. They know no social protocols. They have no training on what it takes to fit into society. And it is your job to lead the way, not just mommy's job, but your job to lead the way for them to develop some skills to get along well in the world, to not be thought of as bumbling idiots when they grow up to be adults, to gain economic viability by having skills and education and so forth. And so essentially, just like my corporate clients, Colgate-Palmolive and Campbell Soup and the Bank of Jamaica and NCB, just like my corporate clients, you as a leader have a responsibility not just to lead, but to be a transformational leader. What do I mean by that? Transformational leader is building morale and enhancing the performance of others, your children, and even creating an environment in which your woman can flourish, connecting the followers, the people who follow you, their sense of identity and their sense of self to the mission and the collective identity of that family, of that unit, in the same way you as a professional man would do with your department you lead at work, if you're a manager and a leader there. providing role models, being role model for those you want to inspire to excellence, challenging them to take on greater ownership of their work. Now, fathers sometimes just tell them what to do, tell them what to do. Wait a minute, how about if you equip them and delegate to them kindly and reward them when they do well, and aligning them to the tasks that bring out their greatest talents, finding out about your children, what's good for them, what makes them tick. I'm not telling you that this ought to be the way and you ought to be like me, because I am challenged with the same notions as well. But to be clear about the standards at least gives us the option to remember them when we get into difficulty or before we get into exchanges with our families. And so I want to skip through a few things here and share with you a model. And as we get toward the end of this little exhortation, sharing of ideas, about you reaching out of yourself and beginning to understand those whom you lead at home. This is the same model that companies hire me to share. It has to do with personality types. And I have a sheet of paper with about 30 personality types. This is the one I like because it is easy to remember, because it's intuitive and it maps over all the others. So Myers-Briggs has 16 categories. This has four of Myers-Briggs fit into one, 4 fit into the other, and so forth. Truth is truth, however you discover it. If you're a great leader as a father, you have wisdom. A part of that wisdom is to understand that your wife is not quite like you. In fact, if your wife were quite like you, that would be a problem. I want you to imagine what it's like to kiss yourself. I mean, what fun would that be? You want somebody different to kiss and to hug and to embrace. Your wife is not quite like you, and it's because of that she was attractive, because she supplied something you didn't have at the time. And oh, by the way, your children are not like you. In fact, I think it was Khalil Gibran, and I'll have to go and confirm this, who said, your children came through you, or no, our children came through us, but they are not of us. We should not force them to be like us. If anything, we should try to be like them. They came through us, but they're not of us. They were created by the hand of God, and we happen to be the conduit in no lesser way than Mary Magdalene. Mary was the conduit that brought forth Jesus. She was not a heavenly preacher. She was the medium through which that messenger came to the earth. Your children are like that. I made the mistake of thinking that my daughter, who was bright and smart and philosophical and business oriented, she wanted to make lemonade and sell things on the lawn to make her money. And I made the mistake of thinking she was like me. And I thought, man, she's going to grow up and be a businesswoman, and she's going to go around the world and do what I'm doing because she has a skill for it. And one year I dressed her up and took her with me to Colgate-Palmolive in Mexico, to the UK to work with Sainsbury's and different places just to get her into that field. And she did fine, and she had a briefcase, and she was tall for her age, and she looked like my business partner. And then she graduated from high school and got scholarships everywhere. And we agreed that she would matriculate into the University of Cincinnati on a 5-year program to have a master's in international business. She spent a semester there, and she was bored stiff, and she quit. She couldn't deal with it. She hated it. She was not into commercialism and artificial ingredients and genetic modifications of food and forcing people to take credit cards that they can't afford. And she hated that thing. My daughter was born differently from me. She loves music. She's an artist. Right now, she has decided to leave the United States, and she now lives in Valencia in Spain, and she sings like an archangel, and she's a translator, and she teaches people how to speak English in Spanish. She speaks Spanish fluently. I speak Spanish too, but the point is, she is given to art and I'm given to business. But she came out of me. My son too is different from me. What am I saying to you? If you want harmony in your family, if you want to be a legitimate leader, study your children, study your spouse. Here's a quick model, and it's an involved model, but I do it quickly. Some people are eagles, some people are doves, some people are peacocks, and some people are owls, O-W-L. Now, the two over here are very controlling. They like to be in charge. They run things. The two over here like to stay in the background, and they're supporters. They're born with this. It's wired in their genetic fiber. It's in their DNA. Some of them are direct when they talk to you. Some of them are indirect. They're more diplomatic. Now, I want to share this with you. The ones who are eagles, here's how they are. They're assertive, they're driven, they're strong, they're dominant, they're bold, they love challenge, they play with the issues of life, they're not afraid. Countering them is the opposite of the dove, who is a people person. The dove is a networker, the dove is soft-spoken, easy to get along with, doesn't want to offend anybody. The world is made of these two opposites. But then you have over here on the other vector, the peacock who's cheerful, optimistic, flamboyant, bombastic, enjoys life in all of its colors, all the colors of the rainbow, dramatic, tells a great story. And then over here you have the opposite, who's the owl, who's organized and detailed and systematic and driven not to numbers and analysis, accurate, professional. You have these members of this quadrant in your work and maybe in your family. You are one of them, even though you may share attributes of the others. There's a sort of dominant quadrant that best defines you, even if it's 51 to 49. But may I tell you, if you are an eagle and you try to use eagle language to communicate with the dove will not like it because you will seem too aggressive. The peacock might not like it because you're no fun, you never relax, you're too uptight. The owl may say all of your great plans don't make any sense because you haven't given me the information, you did slow it down and let me hear you better. And the same is true if you're any one of the others talking to the different quadrants. You need to adapt your communication style and your relationship to fit that person's way of being. And for example, the eagle who's so driven to get the work done is aggressive and impatient and poor in listening and hostile and not sociable and materialistic and uncompassionate and stubborn. So everyone who has a strength has a corollary weakness. By the way, if you find any of this interesting and you want to take a screenshot, please do so, or send us an email and we can get this to you. But here's the dove. The dove who is nice and people-oriented is laid back and unmotivated and slow to make decisions, doesn't like change. All of them have their weaknesses. The peacock, who is so much fun-loved, is disorganized, usually late, exaggerates, and too self-centered. And the logical, systematic, data-driven owl is boring and monotonous and resists change and doesn't see the big picture and is given to analysis paralysis. The great leader knows this and adapts his style to the different people and takes his own personality strengths and tries to work down the weaknesses and capitalize on the strengths that God has given him. And so I'm not going to go much further than to say to you that God has given you massive power. He made you to have dominion, but that dominion is best exercised when you're gentle and humble and discriminating about how you deal with people, because you have the time to study them and adapt your strength to them so that they don't find you to be overpowering or disorganized or boring or whatever else comes with your strength as a corresponding weakness. God made you to emulate him. And he said, fathers, love your wives as Christ loved the church. The church was set up as a way in which heaven operates, and you as a father are supposed to emulate that. I wish you well, and I wish your family well. And I know that they're in good hands when you become the right kind of powerful man that God meant you to be. God bless you all. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Wow. Owl, dove, peacock, eagle. Wow. Dove, eagle, owl. Let me just remind the viewers and the participants that we have some giveaways. So please listen carefully when we hear what speakers speak, because you might just win a copy of if Canopus can fly, so can I. If you can answer the question later on for a giveaway. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
As usual, that is just absolutely, totally inspiring, motivating, and really have me thinking deeply. What kind of leader am I in my house? A bigger robot, am I big at home? Wow. Wow, questions indeed to ponder. We're now going to have a musical selection from the Transformation Band. Enjoy. Transformation Band. Transform the atmosphere.
Transformation Band, Praise City International Transformation Center Men's Fellowship in collab with the Miracle Club and OCTT is bringing you this wonderful webinar, Man Up and Talk Up. Excellence, leadership excellence in the church, the home, and the family, OMG. Anybody here online in this webinar who has not been to Trenchtown? If you have never been to Trenchtown, come on down and check out Trenchtown. As our next speaker is fond of saying, save Trenchtown, you save Jamaica. Save Trenchtown, you save Jamaica. Let's now have the introduction to our next presenter at this wonderful webinar, Man Up and Talk Up.
Our second presenter is a household name in Jamaica, Dr. Henley Morgan, founder and executive chairman of Agency for Inner-City Renewal, AIR. He is a pioneering force in the field of social entrepreneurship and compassionate leader, seeking to influence the adoption of social enterprise legislation and the emergence of a social stock exchange. Preacher, teacher, mentor, motivator, and social commentator. He's the recipient of numerous awards and is highly involved in professional development and civil society governance. He possesses a Bachelor's of Science degree in Biology and Chemistry, a Master's in Business and Industrial Administration, and a Doctorate in Education Administration. Dr. Morgan is an influential figure in public life who writes a regular newspaper column and is the author of 2 books, The Jamaican Job Seeker's Guide and Job Seeking Made Simple. He also has a 5-minute radio commentary, The Watchman, which is aired on nationwide radio. He was conferred with one of the nation's highest national honors, the Order of Distinction, for his work in the area of community transformation. let's welcome this man of God and a man of the people who is ably qualified to speak on leadership excellence, Dr. Henley Ward Morgan.
Hello there. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Moderator, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, Doc, loud and clear.
As it's customary for me to say, first giving honor to God. All protocols observed, but I must give a special shout out to my fellow presenters. Thank them for responding to the call to come down to Macedonia and help us. Alvin Day, you have just paid me the greatest compliment one could be paid, and that is being the first speaker and being confident enough in me to think everyone will not walk out once I come on. Hello there, Alex. I must mention Bishop Rohan Trelevin and those who worked so tirelessly to make this possible, to you, Mr. Moderator, to our Member of Parliament. And there are two persons joining in the audience who you must forgive me, like Nelson Mandela, in referring to the long list of persons he had to acknowledge on becoming President of South Africa, said all protocols observed, but I have to mention those who were my prisoners because they helped make me. Hi, Rosalind Allison from Vancouver. The attributes I'm going to speak about and the functions of leadership are reflected in you. And I have to give a shout out to Dr. Owen Roach, who in my early years in Trenchtown was in my office one day and he said, one day I'm going to have as many certificates. And I chuckled. And today he is an associate professor at St. Leo University in Florida and has a doctorate degree. Big up yourself, Owen. It is a privilege to speak on this challenging topic. And Gart, you may start now the screen sharing. Thank you. Let me just wait for Gart to bring that up. Advance it, Gart. I am going to keep it there. I'm keep speaking from the perspective of the church. I feel like I want to mend something today, so I'm going to have to start by breaking something. I'm going to have to break your hearts. But I promise before the end of the presentation, I will put it back together again. Isaiah 1, verse 21 reads thus, how the faithful city has become a whore. She who was full of justice, righteousness lodged in her, but now murderers. How? Jamaica. How Trenchtown has become a whore. She who was full of justice, righteousness lived in her, but now murderers. I have a simple rule in reading the Bible, reading scripture. If I read a verse that leaves me heartbroken and depressed and distressed, it means I haven't read far enough. So in Isaiah 1, if you read to verse 26, it says, and I will restore your judges as at the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. And afterward you shall be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. There is hope. Hallelujah. Next slide. Now, keep it there. Let's start though with the unpleasant part of the journey. What one politician referred to, former Prime Minister, I believe, as the uglification of Jamaica. The uglification of Jamaica. Look, we must face reality. We must present the challenges and the problems in their raw state. We must properly diagnose the root cause of the ills before we can be prescriptive, before we can prescribe remedy. Next one. So keep it there. This must have been what Christopher Columbus, I will not say he discovered Jamaica, but when he first sighted Jamaica on May 4th, 1494, unspoiled, pristine. No wonder when he returned to Spain and had audience with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and he had to describe Jamaica, this loquacious seafarer who was never at a loss for word. If he was at a loss for word, he would create them bad one, as we call it in Jamaica. He was lost for words. He simply picked up a piece of paper from her desk, Queen Isabella's desk, crumpled it in his arm, threw it and said, that is Jamaica. But we have gone from this to, go with me, God, to this. Hold it there. You know, Alvin referred to the creation. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created. Let there be light. And he created, and he created, and he created. And after each creation, he said, it's good. Beasts of the field, fish of the air, the moon, the sun, fruit trees, herb. Yes, herb too. And then he created man. Why is the sequence different than the one Alvin Day spoke about? Why did man come first, last? Because God created man to be stewards, placed him in a productive place and said, take dominion, replenish, multiply. How good a job has man done? We have gone to this. Next slide. And from this to this. And from this to this. Next slide. If you can read that go back. If you can read, go back. If you can read that placard that lady is holding aloft, it says, leave us alone. There's another one that was published in the paper in 2010 when the incursion of Tivoli occurred, which said, Dodus is our God. That is not Jamaica in total reality, but it's something with which we are very acquainted. The uglification of Jamaica because of man inhumanity to man, because of greed and corruption and neglect. Let's go. So let's give a background and context to what was presented by that last slide. Next slide. Garrison, a political stronghold, a verifiable fortress, completely controlled by political party, is how the communities such as Trenchtown were described back on July 23, 1997 by the National Committee on Political Tribalism. They resulted from political machination and gerrymandering starting in the early 1960s. And with the emergence of political garrisons, the crime trajectory dramatically changed. Looking around for reasons. We know the reasons. The only difference between Jamaica and other countries is this human invention called the garrison. Next one. Jamaica led the world in homicides. I tell you, you're gonna break your heart. So we can mend it again. 63 out of 100,000 in 2017. That year, we were the murder capital of the world. In 2020, last year, the rate was 46.5 to 100,000, one of the highest in the world. The United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, UNODC, reports world average of 7.5 per 100,000. Do you know that civil war is 40 per 100,000? And garrison behavior and culture, which is the subculture, is becoming the dominant culture. You can tell a Jamaican without speaking to the Jamaican, just in terms of how they dress, how they walk, how they carry themselves, how they talk. It's becoming the dominant culture. Next one. And there are two consequences of this subculture that we have to contend with. One, hold it there, is male dysfunction. If you just look at this table, which Dale spoke to the other morning on CVM as he was promoting this webinar, Dale Brown, this is. In Jamaica's census, males 49%. My daughter now lives in Canada because she said there are no men in Jamaica. Little does she know, there are almost equal numbers of males as females. God balanced the thing. So where are they? Look at life expectancy. Males 68.6 years, females 75.3. Maybe many of them are in Dovecot. Can you imagine that? No wonder they say Dovecot is the richest real estate in Jamaica, because there you will find great inventions that never were, great songs that were never composed. Look at literacy. Males 80.6, females 90.8. Primary enrollment, males 51.0, females 49.0. Males are more than females at primary. Secondary, males 49.8 of enrollment, female 50.2. When you get to tertiary, males 31.4, females 68.6%. Where have they disappeared to? Homicide victims. Males 93%, females 7%. And the only reason females are at 7 is that males have now turned their weapons against females and children. The perpetrators of homicides, males 98%, females 2%. So one of the consequences of this culture, subculture that's now pervasive, is the male dysfunction. Next slide. Now we are privileged, leave it there, we have privilege to have co-producing this webinar, Frenchtown Optimist Club, and their focus is on children. Another consequence that people don't talk about much is crime-induced trauma in children. What happens to children when they live in high crime, toxic, stressful environments? I quote the late Barry Chavance. We have a generation of children who are being schooled both through social factors such as dysfunctional family and community influences, as well as personal experience of violence and crime, into an acceptance of violence as the real alternative to conflict management and conflict resolution. That's the reality. The cycle continues. Next slide. Here's another dimension to that problem from the report of the Social Indicators Monitoring System. There would be a rising number of children growing up who are less capable of cognitive functions and suffering from weakening or declining levels of behavioral strengths because of undetected and untreated mental trauma. Are you listening to me, Owen Blacker Ellis? Are you listening to me, Calvin Hunter? Are you listening to me, Shauna Parsons? Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me? Those of you who are leaders within the Trenchtown Optimist Club, with the focus, your focus on children is justified by this. Next one. Not a dimension. So, what is the imperative of the church? Looking at these situations and wondering how they might be treated. Ministering to men at the margin is a key ministry issue for the 21st century Jamaican church. And I, as a personal witness, can tell you, those who like to tell my story, and now I was in New Kingston and now I'm in Trenchtown, I can tell you, the one called to such a ministry must himself be prepared to be marginalized. You cannot just have a prophylactic relationship with the problem. The Bible declared that the Word was made flesh and dwelt among them. Jesus Christ left heaven and lived as a man to feel their pain, to suffer temptation, and in the end to show that we can rise among the vicissitudes of life and live respectfully and in honor to our God. It cannot be church as usual, it must be church unusual. What is that? To minister as Jesus did. Not in hollowed, ornate environments with padded seats and air conditions putting people to sleep. But he lived and ministered out among the outcasts of society. Next one. Let's look at how Jesus started his ministry then. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 20, and Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And they straightway left their nets and followed him. Jesus started his ministry fishing for men. And I know in Jamaica, when the word fish and men go together, it connotes something else. But it's time we start understanding that that is the function of the church and the ecclesia, those of us who are the called out people of God. Next one. But very importantly, from those few verses of scripture, we see the leadership functions as practiced by Jesus. Almost 1,500 years before the Industrial Revolution, out of which became modern understandings of management and leadership. 2,000 years before there was enough knowledge for Barker from Harvard to proclaim that leadership is not management. In this single verse we have of scripture, few verses of scripture, we have all we need to know about the functions of leadership. Follow me. Leadership is followership. If nobody's following, you can't say to be leading. Are we leading our men? Or are there vacant seats in our places of worship waiting to be filled? I will make you. Leadership is transformative. Leadership changes both the leader and the follower. And they dropped their nets and they followed him. Leadership is motivating and inspiring. Are we speaking in language that the men who need to hear the message the most? Why do they prefer to congregate on the corners? Why don't we build corners then in the church, where men just sit down and talk and cook a pot and share? Next slide. This is how Jesus described his ministry. Quoting Isaiah, he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised." Not a very attractive job description for many modern day preachers. But if we want to be able to be the salt of the earth, to be the light in the midst of the prevailing darkness, to reach the lost, I suggest to you that this has to be our driving force. Next one. So we spoke about leadership functions, but there are also leadership attributes of Jesus which we should strive to emulate. Next one. And the practical demonstration of this can be seen in Peter and John at the temple called Beautiful, which is recorded in Acts chapter 3, verses 1 to 11. Let's just quickly encapsulate with the next slide. So Peter and John are at the temple, and there's a man lame from his mother's womb who is laid daily at the gate of the temple. And here it is, squalor at the gate of beauty. In a way, it's so reminiscent of Jamaica. We see it every day. And the man's expectation is for alms, charity. And Peter said, "Look on us. Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee." What is it that we are to give? What is it? Next page. Well, I'm going to tell you this. Next slide. Peter gave the man CASH. And years ago, there was a political party in Jamaica that has as its slogan, "It takes CASH to care." Don't start leaving. Don't start running and say you don't have any money. And that's only government. Turn to the next page. Slide, go. You see, CASH, not English pounds, not French francs, not Italian liras, not Russian rubles, not Japanese yens, not US dollars, and certainly not Jamaican dollars. You see, CASH represents the leadership attributes of Christ. And that is what is called for in our churches today. Let's go. Dart. C, you see, is for compassion. Matthew 4 verses 42, and says, and Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with great compassion towards them. Leave it there. Yes, many of us show sympathy like the disciples did. They thronged before the feeding of the 5,000, were there all day. And in the evening, the disciples were sympathetic. They were sorry, said, send them so they can get something to eat. But Jesus said, was moved with compassion. He said, my house is your house. Tell them to sit down. We're about to serve you. Compassion. Compassion. Next one. A is for association. I have said the nature of the problems are such that you cannot solve them by having a prophylactic relationship with them. Then drew nigh unto him all the publicans and sinners. And that's why I said, when you do this kind of work in these Nazareths of Jamaica, you run the risk yourself of being marginalized. They drew nigh unto him all the publicans and sinners, and the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, this man receives sinners and eateth with them. Luke 15, verses 1 to 2. Light is of no value in the absence of darkness. Its greatest value is when it encounters darkness. Salt is of no value until it is used to season meat and to prevent rot. S, next one, is for selflessness. Selflessness. You give your money, your time, your treasure, your talent. Give yourself. In the parable of the Good Samaritan from Luke 10, verse 30 to 36, just quickly, there's a man, Jesus said, was going from Jerusalem to Jericho, a very lonely and dangerous road. He was stripped, attacked by robbers and stripped of his clothes, beaten and left for dead. A priest, a holy man, so characteristic of many churches today, came by and saw him, looked and crossed on the other night. Another holy man, Levite, came, looked, but that's not his problem, so he went ahead. And then the Samaritan, who should have been traditionally, historically, his sworn enemy, got off of his mount, dressed his wounds, took him to an inn, which would be a hospital today, left money, came back to see that it was well. And Jesus asked a question at the end of the story. He said, who was this man's neighbor? He that showed him mercy. Are we doing that? Matthew 22, 37 to 40. See Jesus saying the greatest commandments, the two. Love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart and all the soul, man. And the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two hangs all the prophets and the law. H. Next one is heart. When you look on the transgressions of David, and to have the Lord said, I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. In Luke 24:32, we see two men on the road to Emmaus after the crucifixion of Jesus, and they were having a conversation, and then a stranger joined himself to them. They didn't know it was Jesus. And after Jesus turned off in a path and disappeared, one said to the other, did our heart not burn within us while he talked with us along the way? Do we even walk the communities anymore? Do we just walk the communities? Do we do our own reconnaissance? The heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. The heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. And as I get ready to come to a close, there's a politician on record for saying these men are irredeemable. Before you point fingers, consider this. The LAPUP survey by Vanderbilt University found that close to 1/3 of Jamaicans would give up their civil rights to give the police a free hand in exterminating who they consider to be irredeemable. Let me conclude. Next slide. What is this kind of church that can exhibit these leadership attributes, these leadership functions as practiced and portrayed by our Lord Jesus Christ? The missional church is one that aligns itself with God's missionary purpose in the world. Like Jesus, we must again become fishers of men. And everything we do, say, and reflect, we must reflect the message must be the same. We will go where the lost sheep are to be found. We will win the lost at any cost. Next slide. We're not talking about a come in and sit down church. We're talking about a get up and go out church. It is a church that operates at the margins of society. It embraces the culture, even as it creates the counterculture. If you just disdain the local music and you disdain the dress and you disdain the other thing, you have to, I don't say you have to practice it or preach it, but you have to understand it in order to create the counterculture. Next slide. The church we're talking about is a church built on radical discipleship, social outreach, and leadership excellence. Final page. I thank you. Next slide. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Let us, starting with ourselves, portray that kind of leadership excellence. God bless you and thank you.
Whoa. Whoa. W-O-W. Oh my goodness. Dr. Henley Ward Morgan. We began with the magnificent Mr. Day, and then we got to Doc, and we get into the leadership from the home person into the church. OMG. And fourth, we have some great speakers, but you can also join the convo. Type in the chat if you have questions or comments, if you want to, and we're gonna have a broader convo later on so you can all get involved. We're gonna ask also our good friend, Pastor Junior Tucker, to jump in and respond to the speakers later on. So, I mean, this is an amazing juncture. It's an amazing engagement. And I'm just happy that we're all a part of it. And it's happening, it's coming through the center of Trenchtown. Praise City Men's Fellowship, doing a good thing here with this webinar, Man Up and TalkUp, excellence, leadership in the church, in the family, in the nation, man and man. This is amazing. So we're gonna have another musical break for a brief minute, then we're gonna hear our third and final speaker, and then we're gonna all open it up now to a big, broader conversation. You can be a part of it. And remember, we also have giveaways. Musical break, and then one more speaker. This is Man Up and TalkUp. Excellence in leadership, in the family, in the church, and in the nation. So far, we have had 2 excellent presentations. It's gonna get even more wonderful. Stay tuned. Praise City International Transformation Center Men's Fellowship is bringing you this wonderful webinar.
The butterfly, you too were born to fly.
Our agents are squatting data. A big tune. Inspired by Alvin.
Everything I need to be me.
Somebody.
Things inside my mind to set me free.
Tap your finger, tap your toe.
I know I've got vision more than my eyes can see. And I know I rule my destiny. So no matter how hard you try, no, you can never change my mind. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can I, yeah. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. Hey, watch out now. This a favorite caterpillar member say you can't fly. Don't watch no mosquito or no sunfly. Don't sit down and complain, get up and try. Say the word, the whole universe comply. Aye. Work on your goals and build them. Take time and sharpen your skills them. And your dreams don't make no one kill them. Them soon see your wings them. And no matter how hard you try, there's a fact they can't deny. If caterpillars can fly,
so can I.
So can I, yeah. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can I, yeah. Yes, I know that I can fly. For I've learned the laws of life. I know that caterpillars can fly. So can I. So can I. I was born with everything I need to be me. Wings inside my mind to set me free. I know I've got vision more than my eyes can see. And I know I rule my destiny.
So no matter how you try, no, you will never change my mind. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can I, yeah. If caterpillars can fly, so can I.
So can I. Ooh.
The book that inspired that song is called If Caterpillars Can Fly, So Can I by Alvin Day. Giving away a copy this evening. Also, we're giving away a copy of the book called Mystique of Leadership by Ihama. Also, a copy of my book of poetry, Rhythm and Riddles, and even a bottle of non-alcoholic wine, where you can win one of those giveaways by getting involved in the conversation and answering some questions later on. And now, it is time to introduce to you our next speaker as we gather virtually to share ideas, to have this broad conversation on leadership excellence in the church, in the home, and in the nation. Let's now get introduced to our next dynamic presenter at this wonderful webinar. Introduction, live.
Our third presenter is Mr. Ihama, considered as one of the most dynamic and engaging speakers in the world today. He is widely recognized as one of Canada's foremost trainers and consultants on leadership effectiveness, sales and marketing, strategic management, and the strengthening of corporate culture and competitive advantage through inclusive diversity and workplace equity. He's a versatile entrepreneur with many businesses, including the International School of Greatness, the Strategy Management Office SMO, the Corporate University, and the Canadian Congress on Inclusive Diversity and Workplace Equity. He is an executive coach to politicians, judges, bishops, TV personalities, Olympians, and other celebrities. He is a global strategist who helps organizations to make and save millions of dollars. He has written over 100 transformational online courses and certification programs, and he is the author of best-selling books like Welcome to Greatness and The Mystique of Leadership. Viewers, listeners, community, and friends, let's welcome Mr. Ihama.
Wow, Jamaica, Wagwan. I'm glad to be back, even though this is virtually. I'm glad to be back here. I'm glad to be back. Nice to see you all. I'll feel you all rather. First, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Henley Morgan. You're a giant, certainly a treasure for Jamaica, for pulling this together. Greetings to all the speakers, certainly to Alvin Day. It's the first time I'm listening to you live, so I'm glad to be here with you sharing this platform. And I think there's another nation builder on the line. I must recognize Mrs. Chong. I don't know if you're still there. That's another nation builder, Mrs. Chong of Honeybond Foundation. And I know if you're Jamaican, you certainly are enjoying those goodies from the Honeybond Limited that she has. These are nation builders. I'm here to talk about leadership on a national level, right? So, and that's really what my purpose is in life, is to ignite people to rise above themselves and take over the dominion, that God has blessed them with. I also recognize that, there are some of my School of Greatness students online. If I start to call your names, I may miss it. So thank you all for joining and for showing up. And for everybody that is still here, that have been listening to these great messages, you're a hero. Your time has come. This is, your time has come to rise up and step up. When you look at those data that Henley was showing, if that doesn't break your heart, then you have none, right? So I'm glad to be here. I'm going to leave you, with 3 keys, what I call 3 leadership keys to nation building. 3 leadership keys to nation building. If we have any nation builder on the line, just go on the chat and say, I'm a nation builder. Yes, Michelle, say you're here. I said, yes, respond. I may not hear you, but come on, put those fingers on the keyboard and say, I'm a nation builder. If you are, you say, thou shalt declare a thing that is not as if though it is, and it shall be. Who are the nation builder? Pastor Junior Tucker. Absolutely. Moy Fong, nation builder, Michelle Chong. Yes, we are the nation builders. We are the nation builders. Jamaica needs some nation builders. And I want to make sure I have enough on the line to talk to. Randy Franklin, you are blessed. Let me start by saying this, that one of the greatest mistakes in especially developing nations, one of the greatest mistakes that we make in Africa, one of the greatest mistakes we make in the Caribbean, one of the greatest mistakes, my friend, we make in South America is for people to abstain from the government of their nation. One of the greatest mistakes is for people to relinquish their rights to those in the corridors of power because those were voted into office. It's for you to feel insignificant because there are some people occupying some seats in parliament. That's one of the biggest mistakes. As a citizen of a nation, as a Jamaican, you must understand a couple of things. Number one, you are fully responsible for the state of your nation. I say that again. You are fully responsible for the state of your nation. If you think Jamaica is doing well today, then you have done well. But if you think that Jamaica is not doing well, then it is time that we hold ourselves accountable for not doing that which we must do. Because if everybody was playing their part, everything will fit well. In fact, I'll reference the quotation by Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa said, if we would all just sweep the front yard of our home, the whole community will be nice. Let's ask ourselves what we're doing. So what comes to mind when Henley Morgan was sharing those statistics is a question that we must ask ourselves. Like for me, I've seen those numbers before, by the way. Jamaica is my second home, so I follow those numbers. I know that at some point, and even most currently, Jamaica is leading the world in murder. Is leading the world in murder, and that's, I mean, when we talk of Jamaica, we're talking about the sea and the sand and the fun. So because some people are not rising up to their place of authority, then we have a broken system. We have a broken system. I often believe that when the things in your neighborhood, when the things around you, in your home, in your community, when they are not going right, is an indictment on your leadership. Is an indictment on your leadership. So I have come, my friend, to empower you, to inspire you, but to challenge you out of your comfort zone, to challenge you to take your rightful place. Come on, in the corridors of power, even without a position of authority. Leadership, my friend, has never been about a position of authority. In fact, in my book, Mystique of Leadership, I understand one of you will be winning the book tonight. In my book, Mystique of Leadership, here's how I define leadership. Leadership is a spirit. I'll take a pause. It's a spirit. I didn't say it's a qualification. I didn't say, you go to Harvard to get it. No, it's a spirit. The spirit is in everybody. You listening to me today, there's a spirit of leadership in the core of your existence. It was built and wired into your mental capacity, but you have to ignite it. So leadership is a spirit that can only be ignited by purpose. Sustain. You see the kind of passion you're seeing right now? This is how I am. Those who know. The only time I'm not passionate is when I'm sleeping. And even my wife says, even in sleep, I'm passionate too. You have, once you discover your purpose in life and you make that decision and say, come what may, no matter what, I am going to fulfill my purpose, then and then only a leader is born. Then and then only a leader is born. Leadership is a spirit, my friend, that can only be ignited by your purpose, sustained by passion, and guided by principles, which means without your purpose, you can never be a leader. You can never be a leader. You may be voted into power. You may even be, promoted to be a CEO, and you may even inherit a position of authority like we hope Prince Charles someday may inherit, hopefully. I don't even know who's older, him or his mom. I don't know who's older today. But let me tell you something. We can come together. Somebody once said, never underestimate the power that a small group of people can really exert, the influence they can. In fact, no other group. It did not take 100 people to get the independence for Jamaica. It took a few people who stood up and said, enough is enough. And they decided to take power back from the breaches. So listen, my purpose here today, simple, to ignite in you the spirit of leadership and to give birth to nation builders. Are there nation builders in the house today? I may not be able to hear you. I want to see you type that in. Am I speaking to somebody? If I am, say, yes, you are. Absolutely. I am here to raise up men. I know there are most men on the phone, on the line, but I'm also here to raise up women because I know some women, as I think Henley Morgan or the host said it. So these days you have homes that are led by women, right? Because where are the men? Where are the men, right? Where are the men? So we are here today to raise up men and women who are willing to step out of their comfort zone, to roll up their sleeves and to get back to work and take the country of Jamaica and drag it into the kingdom of God. If you have to pull it, pull it. It says, since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of God have suffered violence and it taketh violence, right? So we gotta be forceful. We can't sit down and gossip on social media about a nation that is dying. We should be forecasting, declaring a vision. So listen, my friend, I'm going to jump into my 3 points. I'm going to give you 3 keys. 3 keys I'm going to give you on how to build your nation. First, I want you to be pumped. You have to recognize that no other person is going to do this. In fact, it was Marcus Garvey, one of your godfathers out there in the nation, who said, you are twice defeated in the race of life without confidence. Without confidence, you are twice defeated. Not once, twice. My God. Since when did you relinquish your power to people in positions of authority? Because they were voted in? My friend, it's time to step up and to rise up and to live up to your purpose. 3 keys. The keys I'll be leaving you here today, these are keys that are bound to change your life completely. Guarantee. Keys that are bound to bring the change that you desire. The change in your homes, the change in your businesses, the change in your churches. Jesus, the churches need to rise up. Thank you to Henley Morgan for a fantastic message, and thank you to Alvin Day for a fantastic message. Leadership begins at home, and then in the churches, it has to go everywhere. Like I said, it's got nothing to do with being voted into power. Therefore, my friend, the very first key I want you to know today is you must have a vision for Jamaica. You must have a vision for Jamaica. A vision for your nation. Write it down, somebody. Vision for your nation. Vision for your nation. Vision for your nation. Perhaps maybe the question I should ask is, do you have a vision for yourself? Alvin and Cole all talked about that. Do you have a vision for yourself? But you must, critical, my friend, don't go to bed. Don't go to bed tonight. Well, you're 8 o'clock in Jamaica. We're 9 o'clock over here. Don't go to bed tonight until you've taken pen and paper and write down the Jamaica you want to see. Say, my dear God, here's the Jamaica I want to see. Jamaica that as Martin Luther King talked about the blacks in the US then. Little black boys and little black white girls can all hang out and have fun and play. Jamaica, where kids can play in the dark of the night and not be scared of being shot by stray bullets. Jamaica, where people will be voted to power and truly they'll be servants of the people. Jamaica, that will be open for business for the world to come. Jamaica, where the crime rate completely, in fact, the statistics will begin to look for crime and they won't find. Declare the Jamaica that you want. What is your vision for your nation? What is your vision for your nation? Do you spend time talking about Jamaica that you don't want, or you spend more time talking about Jamaica you want? I go on your social media, all I see is they chop this guy's head off and they shot this guy and they killed this guy and they did that and they listen. And there's so much crime against women. I know this is a men's conference, so let me challenge the men. Let me tell you, there is nothing that demonstrates the weakness of a man than him exerting power over a woman. Not like if you want to show how weak you are, hit a woman. If you want to show how weak you are, curse a woman. If you want to show how weak you are, don't be nice to a woman. That strength is, sometimes we get this thing confused backward. We get it backward. I think Alvin did a good job on that, so I'll leave that to you. But do you know that the Bible says that thou shalt declare a thing that is not as if though it is, and it shall be? Vision for your nation. Vision for your nation. JFK once said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I say ask, not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The reason you find people looking for handout from the government is because they have relinquished their power to people sometimes who don't even know what they are doing. Because they voted you into power does not make you a leader and does not make you a servant to that person. It's called civil service is what they used to call it. They are supposed to serve. You're supposed to serve. So again, I can stay on that forever. Number one, I'm giving you only 3 keys. I can give you 21 if you want, but I'll give you 3 keys. Number one, have a vision for your nation. Have a vision for your nation. Number two, have passion for social justice. Jesus, come on. If you are talking about things that are going on and you are doing nothing about it, then you are guilty just as much as the perpetrators. Absolutely. I had a conference just a few days ago at the first year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. And I said this to them. I said, listen, they may have found the police officer guilty. They may have found the police officer guilty, but what about the systems that enabled him to do that? What about the policies that enabled him to do that? My question here is, if you are doing nothing, if you are not part of the solution, my friend, you're part of the problem. Now, when we talk about social justice, some people are quick to jump to, people like Mahatma Gandhi or jump to Martin Luther King and say, well, I may not have that level of influence. And what are you talking about? Social justice is a very simple thing. It means for you to care for your neighbor. It means for you to speak up when somebody's been oppressed. It means for you, come on, somebody. It means for you to rise up. What they call this, man up. It means for you to man up and to woman up. For the women on the line, don't know if that works in Jamaica, but the woman up. You got to man up, you got to woman up, you got to child up, you got to youth up. Step up, that's what it means. You don't stay aside and watch somebody put his knee on a full-grown man like George Floyd. I'm telling you, all those people that recorded that, they are guilty. If that was your son under that man, would you be recording it or you rush to that police officer? Maybe he can shoot two. I never shot a gun, but I'm thinking by the time he shoot two people may die, but they will hang him right there on the spot. So listen, social justice is about rising up. You don't stay there and say, look at what's happening to the youth, and yet you are not mentoring any youth. If you are not mentoring any youth right now in Jamaica, you're guilty, my friend. What are you doing? What are you doing? Who are you raising to take over the nation? Listen, us, when I say us, me, you, all of us included, at a certain level in life, it is our responsibility to pave way for the downtrodden, for the discouraged, for the depressed, for the dejected. It's for us to pave way for the next generation. Am I talking to somebody? If I am right now, go on the chat and say, yes, you are. Am I talking to somebody? Number one, I told you, have a vision for your nation. Number two, I said, passion for social justice. Somebody put that in the comment there. Write it out, passion for social justice. And the third one I'm going to leave you with today, come on, somebody, is to a mission to man up, a mission to woman up, a mission to youth up, whatever. A mission, make it a mission from today. My friend, don't go to bed without writing down your vision for your nation. And may you wake up tomorrow morning on fire for your country. Rise up, as I often say, what on earth are you doing on earth if you don't know why you're on earth? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're occupying some real estate? Like, what? Like, your purpose, my friend, let me bring it back to purpose. All of us have a role to play in the transformation of our nation. All of us have a role to play in the development of youth. All of us have a role to play, my friend, in making the world a better place. Everybody. Until we begin to find our purpose and find out how we fit into the vision for nation building, we will continue to wander in the wilderness of nothing. I'm telling you, listen, in you is greatness. In you, everybody was born with the spirit. It is time to ignite it. It's time to ignite it. As I bring my short message to a close, I'm going to read from a quotation. In 1964, Martin Luther King was given the Nobel Peace Prize. In his acceptance speech, there's a section in it that fires me up every time I read that. By the way, I've spent hours reading this man's speech. Here he goes. I'm quoting Martin Luther King right now. He said, I accept these awards today with an abiding faith in America and an audacious faith in the future of mankind. I'm going to have to rephrase that to the context of Jamaica. And I say, I am here today with an abiding faith in Jamaica and an audacious faith in the future of mankind and manhood. I refuse to accept despair as the final response to the ambiguities of history. I refuse to accept despair, I rephrase, as the final response. I refuse to accept even the statistics as the destiny of Jamaica. Those statistics will have to change. As long as you are alive, those statistics will have to change. I refuse to accept the ishness of man's present nature makes him morally incapable of reaching for the eternal hotness that forever confronts him. I refuse to accept that you cannot rise up to greatness. I refuse to accept that you do not have a part to play. I refuse to accept, Martin Luther King continued, the idea that man is flotsam, is mere flotsam and jetsam in the river of life, unable to influence the unfolding events which surround him. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and, in your case, violence and war and the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood that can never be a reality. He refused to accept. I refuse to accept. You say to yourself, I refuse to accept a Jamaica that is dying. I refuse to accept the statistics. I refuse to accept the death of our men. Write that down, somebody. Go in the chat and let it explode with your refuse to accept. I refuse to accept the cynical notion that Jamaica, nation after nation, must spiral down a militaristic stairway into the hell of thermonuclear destruction. I refuse to accept that Jamaica will collapse. I refuse to accept that the men all will be killed. I refuse to accept that. This is why right temporarily defeat is stronger than evil triumph. I believe, even amid today's mortar burst and whiny bullets in Jamaica, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. In Jamaica, hope for a brighter tomorrow. There is hope. Somebody type out right now. There is hope for Jamaica, somebody. I believe, Martin Luther King continued, that wounded justice lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of Jamaica can be lifted from its dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day, and for their bodies and their education and their culture, for their minds, the dignity, equality, and freedom of their spirit. I believe, he said, I believe that Jamaica can turn around as we raise up nation builders, as we energize the young folks, as we take our rightful places in the position of authority, even without a position of authority, then we'll begin to see change. I believe what self-centered men have torn down, men all-centered can build up. Men may have torn it down, but men can also build it up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, and non-violent redemptive goodwill proclaim the rule of the land in Jamaica. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together. Every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. I believe, Martin Luther King continued, we shall overcome. Shout right now, open your mouth and say, we shall overcome. Together we shall overcome. Indeed, we shall overcome. Indeed, we shall overcome. Put your hands together, my friend, for peace, for love, for unity, for harmony, for Jamaica, my friend, for lives, for progress, for yourselves, and for the world. Indeed, you have been called for such a time to be a voice in your generation. No matter your age, no matter your sex, no matter your socioeconomic background, no matter your educational background, you may not have finished school, but you'll be amazed that those that rule the economy of the world, many of them did not finish school. What excuse do you have for standing up, for manning up, and for taking control of your country, Jamaica? God bless you.
God bless you, my brother, Alex Ihama. Wow, wow, wow. Alvin Day, Dr. Henley Morgan, and our brother Alex Ihama. We just had a whole course in excellence, in greatness, in inspiration. I refuse to accept statistics. I refuse to accept negativity. I refuse to accept despair. And I refuse to accept that we can have in this gathering here a man like Pastor Junior Tucker, and don't ask him to start the convo now by responding to our speakers and sharing his response, his opinion, his feedback, his view, as to open it up now to a bigger conversation. OMG. Pastor Tucker, you want to just jump in and start the open conversation? Please, sir. Man from 4th Street. Family Word and Worship, man. Come through, Papa. I refuse to accept despair. I just want to invite
you hear me?
Also. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I am opening my camera, but there you go. Okay. Can you see me? Please forgive the attire. I'm chilling.
Yes,
I'm on vacation. I'm in vacation in Florida, and so please forgive the attire. But my heart is here, my spirit is here. God bless you. Thank you for having me be a part of all of this. I am really honored to be here, to be a part of this. Real quickly, to all the speakers and my fellow ministers and brothers in Christ, I greet you, in the matchless name of our Lord and Savior, God bless you, sir. It was powerful what you all shared. To the minister, I'm not sure if he's still with us. To the leader of opposition, if he's still with us, God bless him. And all the people who are logged on. I can't see how many of you are who you are, but I just greet you and I bless you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a necessary argument, necessary reasoning, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Let me jump right into my question. I heard the great one, Mr. Ihama. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Yes.
Ihama, and Dr. Henley, as usual, who is, when you talk, you just shut him out and just listen and just take notes. You know what I mean? I mean, great things said. How do we know? This has always been my question. I came back to Jamaica some 6 years ago, started a church, and as a man who I believe I'm called to Jamaica, I was living in America for a while, and then the Lord said to me, you're not finished and you will die in this land. And I moved back with my family to start a church and to be a blessing to the nation. And like I said, this is where my life will end, because I believe in my country. I'm called to my people and I'm here to serve. But so how do we know? Because what I observe is this. I believe COVID, I believe violence, and all of these things that what we face are serious senior problems. But one of the things I think is probably our most major problem that we seem to kind of just put under the carpet a lot of times is this thing of self-preservation. This thing of selfishness. It's like we have gotten to the place where even the violence, and we see it, we say things like this. Well, if the person get murdered, then it's probably somebody them know, or that's not gonna happen to me. That not gonna happen to me. That is in Trenchtown. So we'll leave that in Trenchtown. Because them places are known for that. It's Tivoli, it's downtown, it's not where I live at my door. And I was really hoping the leader of opposition was here. So we get this kind of this is not for me, this is not about me. And we try to put our minds in a place where we can, what you call it, just escape or don't even think about it or worry about it. How do we now move to the place where, just like we are collectively here as leaders, minister, pastors, different things, how do we collectively put systems in place that causes us to consistently now have this dialogue, these programs, these different ways to make this be continuous? How do we do that? How that's really my concern.
Big question, Pastor Tucker. Anybody want to jump in with a response? How do we move forward? What's our next step?
Because even as churches, I mean, we protect ourselves and live in that bubble. We don't even collectively, relate to each other. So how do we go beyond that into the streets and just don't visit, but have a continuous system that we can flow and operate the change through?
Dr. Miles Moreau have a quotation that I think answers your question. I know some of you will know Dr. Miles Moreau.
Yes.
He says, when purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. Let that first of all sink in. When purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. When you don't know who you are bound to abuse somebody else. It is time for us to raise up the next generation of leaders. Right from the Bible, the beginning to end, since this is a spiritual platform, Gideon raised up an army. Joshua raised up an army. They never did it by themselves. So churches, to me, since this is kind of a church forum, I have my take with churches. I think Morgan said it. We remain in a building when church is meant to be in the corner. So when do we see pastors at the well talking to the woman like Jesus was? When do we see pastors so churches need to raise up, and everybody in your church, since you're a pastor, honorable pastor, I appreciate you. Everybody in your church, if you help them to discover their purpose, develop leadership capabilities, and then use your influence to put them in ministry of justice. Use your influence to get them into the healthcare. Use your influence to get them into the judicial system. Then then it's not going to happen overnight. But that is how you begin to effectuate change. The country deteriorated because people are in these positions who don't care about philosophies of God. So the church really, my take, I have this conversation all the time. The church they have missed the point, right? Feed my sheep. We are feeding them with Moses and Abraham. We are not feeding them with leadership capability. Feed my sheep. Raise up army. If there are no people in your church that have a certain level of influence to change laws, then you don't have a church. Let me just put it that point. You have a gathering. The people there, look at the 12 disciples Jesus lived, or 11, one of them took his own. But look at them. They turned the world upside down. Yet you find congregations where pastors are revered and the people are all beggars in the church. So my friend, the church is one power block. The school system. Anyway, let me leave the other guys to talk to.
Pastor Tucker asked us how Alex Ihama said, let's raise up an army. I see a raise on Tamark. Tamark, please unmute and respond and share your view. I see your hand raised. We note your raise on Tamark. Please speak. Tamark.
All right. Good night, everybody. And I've been listening from the start. But, no, you cannot follow what you don't see. So even our young men in the streets, coming from the streets, they're not going to follow what they don't see. So if they grow and they see men with guns and men doing this and that, that's what they're going to follow. And I'm saying if we speak from the Bible several times tonight, but one of the key things is that Jesus went to the people.
Yes.
He went and found disciples. He was out in the streets. How often as we see in our church, I go up on the corner and play domino with the man there. And what a reason. Yeah. And sit down and run a boat and talk, have a little cookout in the streets and reach the people them where they are. They're not gonna come into the church. If we stay in our four walls, they're not gonna just come to us like that. We have to go and find them. I mean, a man who has never have an interest in church. We're gonna stay in a little huddle out the road. He's not gonna come in a four corner unless somebody tell himself to come and him follow. Say him follow what him say. And if the church want to have that impact in men being leaders and changing the statistics of our country, we have to now step out there, go out there and let our men start seeing to follow. We can't be just from church to home, from home to work to church. How much church have outreach arms to reach the people where they are?
Indeed.
That's a comment.
I want to thank you.
Yes, Doc, go ahead.
I'd like to follow on that. And I think Brother Alex really touched on two profound points that we're going to have to deal with. But before I go there, I really just want to say how much I appreciate Junior Tucker. One of the first beating I got from my father was caused by Junior Tucker. So we come from country, we come into Kingston, and I used to hear about this child prodigy. And I take up myself to go to a New Kingston hotel to see the Jamaican Michael Jackson. I was very impressed, but I paid with my behind that night. And to see Junior Tucker, who is from 4th Street, through music and his ministry, models what a godly man is. That's big. Brother Tamark, who just spoke, is a member of the Miracle Club. He used to live on no man's land. Let's celebrate the successes.
Yes.
He shared the stage with one of the biggest motivation speakers in the world. And when the man came, he said, if you ever invite me back to Jamaica, don't let this youth talk before me. In the Miracle Club, he has over 55, 60 certificates. Their success story, but Alex touched on 2 points. First of all, Junior, you have to understand that when you live in an environment like Jamaica, self-preservation does not connote I don't want to do nothing. You listen to the news, you hear something, you say, boy, because a man there, the little girl that behave like she a big woman. Them girl that dress, it couldn't happen to me. You know, you always kind of blind. You see, and you put yourself in a point where you don't have to face it. It's just too much. The second thing, and I don't know, Alex, you transform organization. The church in Jamaica, Alex, has no influence. Zero.
That's the problem.
And yet, but here's the amazing thing. The church, the census, the last census in Jamaica said those who claim to be Christians, or at least they go to church often or they believe in God, 2.2 out of 2.7 million at the time. Brethren, that's about 85%. America would love to have that. But for some reasons, the church, if you look at America, the church has tremendous influence.
Yeah.
They decide who is president and who is not president. When they want to move the embassy in Jerusalem, in Israel, from where to Jerusalem, Trump, the president, sent churchmen. But I don't know what it takes for the churches. I don't know if it's denominationality, Junior. I don't know what it is, but we are a divided foe.
I see a reason from Dr. Owen Roach. Dr. Roach, please share your thoughts. It's an open conversation now. We're getting a nice extension here. Dr. Pastor Tucker asks how. Brother Alex Ihama said, let's read up an army. Tamark is saying we need to step out of the four walls. And we are Doc now saying the church sometimes needs to have more influence. Dr. Rose, please jump in. Dr.
Yes,
Owen
sir.
Rose.
Thank you very much, Sir Blacker. You know, I was 2 days ago looking at some of the stupidity you talk about, so I could get a laugh because, you know, this is just time, you know. But to my colleague, Dr. Henley Morgan, I'm most grateful, and to all the other speakers, you know, I'm really moved by what is being said. But I'm looking at it, most of what has been said, right, is taken from the religious perspective and from the church. And Mark, you know, Celis, I don't want you to go make any video of me that I'm not a church guy. I know you feel so that I am, right? And Dr. Morgan will take you down for that. No, I'm saying that we need to start radicalizing our education system.
Yes.
And Henry can tell you more about me in terms of education. I never been to a high school. I went to Lacovia Secondary in St. Elizabeth, fail all common entrance, fail all those exams, fail GCE, joined the Jamaica Constabulary Force, then turn around, did 4 O-levels in 2 years, 2 A-levels in 1 year, went to UTech, went to one Nova, graduate at Capella. I'm now an assistant professor in global operations and supply chain at St. Leo. I'm saying if we should look at a nationalization of our educational system, in other words, go with all these common entrance and all of those kind of stuff, because I live in US right now. Nobody does no entrance to go to any high school. You transition into. Our teachers' colleges right now giving degrees. Let them start to do first, second degree in teaching. Access to student loan should not be whether I use a flush toilet, live up on the hill, or wherever I live, or what my family does. In other words, it takes a big stake in government. And I'm showing you one thing that sitting here in US, I come to Jamaica only in 2020. I don't come there. My mom is 99. My aunt is 101. I have to spend all the time with them to live that long too. But look at how we're treating the COVID situation. How do we find so many buses right now to pick up all those people off the street to bring them to jail, but at the same time we can't fund our school? If we had fund our school and educate people, you know, people would not be breaking all of these laws and rules and all of those things. And there's not a problem in educating our nurses and doctors, and our professionals are the very best anywhere they go. So there's not a problem in exporting them. With all my people who are in Jamaica, I spend a lot in terms of my little much to send to Jamaica every single month. And see Henley there, I call him Henley, I call him Doc, I call him everything. He's my brother. Way back when. He will pick up the phone. Up to this one, we had a conversation, and he'll say, look, there's a youth here in Trenchtown who needs some help. I'm one of the first guy who say, okay, let's do what we can to help him. Right? We have to look at what Alex spoke about, the radicalization of things, and don't look at it from a training perspective. Don't look at us who are educated speaking aloft, because our minds and heart are in the right place. But at the same time, we are being humbugged. And I, would love to have MP Golden here, because if access to gun supersedes education, how do you fix that problem, brother Alex? You speak, if you have access to gun and no access to education and more access to gun. And when I was a cop in the 80s, we never had so much gun. And I'm not taking over this whole thing, but I'm very passionate with my Jamaica, because I don't have a vacation until I reach Jamaica. It doesn't matter what break I get from my teaching and all of that. And I've been teaching this course a long time. I can get up and teach it any day. So I don't have to be over prepared myself. But only when I get to Jamaica, I feel that vacation vibes. I feel invincible. I feel like nothing can happen to you. You feel in a different space. But if access to gun,
Dr. Roach, are you still there? I'm trying to read some comments in the comment section. There were some comments from Michelle Chung that I've missed. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube, folks. So, feel free to jump in and ask questions.
Right. You hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Right. So we talk about the homicides. Look at the percent of homicides. If we had reversed that percent of homicide, what Dr. Morgan spoke about, what Alex spoke about, and also Mr. D, then where would Jamaica be? We would be teaching the world every single thing. So we need to look at the radicalization. Are we failing our youth by we thinking, no, we can change it now? Let's get a break. Don't even think about change it at the top. We have to do the radicalization. Cut this whole exam out of these little youths and so. Get into, a friend of mine talk about STEM education. And I'm committed to teach a course in Jamaica for free. I'm committed to do that. And I'm speaking with Henley about that. I'll be a guest speaker inside of his. I teach quantitative courses and all of those. I'll do a whole semester for free. I'm not rich, but I'll do it. We have to get in, Brother Ellis, to get minds like you to think outside of the box. And when guys can think that creative and do all of these kind of things, why is it that the MP have to get involved with a guy who graduated with a first degree in logistics for him to get a job on the wharf?
Yes. Yes.
I'll leave it there, man.
Yes, thank you, bro.
Henley, if I start talking, it's a whole day. I'll leave it there. Why?
Thank you, bro.
That struck me. Why he had to find the guy for him to get a job on the wharf with a graduate in one of the scarcest discipline you can find right now anywhere in the world, logistics and supply chain, because that's what failed us in our whole COVID thing and ravished the world, because we never pay attention to even distribution of goods and service. think about those things, man. My 2 cents.
Thank you, bro. We're seeing some questions from John Chambers asking why isn't the average Jamaican being told to own gold rather than being encouraged to own debt, loans, and credit cards? A question from Margaret Chapman. Alvin, Day, what forums are in place to aid, support, and empowerment the leadership from the heart? Those are some of the questions being posed in the Q&A. If there are any more, can you read them for me, please? Kamik, I'm meeting some. Courtney Jump asking, saying young men always complain they have no skills center to implement.
Yes.
It was also said the picture at the start showed poverty. How can we get Jamaica to look like Dubai? Where does the church in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to share a thought here, and I fully appreciate the comment earlier. Is my video able to come on? Yes. I fully appreciate the thought earlier about finding sources for empowerment locally, and I'd want to learn some more about what the person asking the question was thinking. But I want to go back to the pivotal questions that we were discussing a while ago about nation building and the state of our precious country, Jamaica, and share a different point of view that is not inconsistent with, but is compatible with everything that we've heard. Mr. Ihama, extraordinary experience listening to you, sir, and I can see your passion. Dr. Henley Morgan, as usual, just a repository of knowledge and wisdom. And let me share this point of view that some may think to be contrarian. I think we need to be aware of our statistics. I think we need to plant leaders into the seats of government. We saw that in the Bible, where people who were unlikely were planted in positions like Joseph in Egypt, like Moses in Egypt, because he was there as one of the leaders to help liberate his people. But if we did all of that alone and missed another portion of it, it would be totally useless. I'm going to contend that the problem in Jamaica is not a social one. It's not an economic one. It's not one of education. It's not one of any of the more operational things that one might think, which are manifestations of the problem. I think the problem in Jamaica is a spiritual problem. I believe in the heavenlies, there are forces that are fighting for the soul of Jamaica. Because Jamaica is a precious gem in the island. The Lord has a special place for the islands of the sea, the Bible says. Jamaica is, I think the Lord created Jamaica for his entertainment. Jamaicans are so funny, Jamaicans are so gifted. You wonder why we are so influential in the world for our little size. And I think there is a war for the heart of Jamaica. Dr. Henley Morgan said it, and was it Dr. Henley Morgan or Alex? I think it was you, Dr. Henley, and I'm going to quote you. The heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. I think that based upon evidence, it is a spiritual problem that will never be solved unless we go to it from a spiritual perspective. Let me share something with you that you already know, but just for the completion of this conversation we're building here. According to 2 Chronicles 7:14, it has to do with the church. It's the church's fault. Listen to this. Jesus Christ, when he came to earth, and all of us mentioned Jesus Christ in speaking here. Jesus Christ was very kind to the prostitute. Some say that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. He was friends with the prostitute. Jesus Christ was very friendly with the tax collector who used to rob off people's money. Jesus Christ was very friendly with the perpetrators of all kinds of ills when their hearts were right. The only place in scripture where I remember seeing Jesus abuse people and cuss them out was when he was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, the leaders of the church. He called them whitened sepulchres because on the outside they look wonderful, but inside they're full of dead men's bones. I think the problem, based upon evidence, I think the problem is the church. Here's what it says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, which you all have heard and known. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and shall pray and shall seek my face and shall turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and what? And I will heal their land. We're talking about our land needing healing, and we are pointing to people who are contributors and or symptomatic manifestations of the problem. But the essence of it is a spiritual problem. The devil is fighting for the heart of Jamaica, this gem that God created. And the church is there, and Dr. Henley Morgan said it's useless, it's without power. Another passage says that judgment must begin in the house of God. If the church people, if the leaders of the church are not holy, if they're disingenuous, if they're messing with the money, if the men are messing with the girls, if they're tolerating sin, if they're not seeking God, if their hearts are not right, it contaminates Jamaica. The Bible did not say if the leaders and the politicians turn to Christ, then he's going to heal their land. Because guess what? Those leaders and politicians who are not of Christ, whose hearts are not right, they're doing what they're naturally supposed to do. They're following their father, the devil. We should not set out on a mission to make unholy people holy. We should not set out on a mission to make bad people good. We should set out on a mission to ensure that those who wear the mantle of being good and holy live up to it. And the Bible promises that when the church becomes holy, when we get rid of all the hypocritical behaviors and we get rid of the abuse of the gospel and the commercialization of the gospel, and we live true to what we say we believe in, God promised that he will therefore heal not the church but the land. Now, this is not incompatible, I say, with everything else, because once the healing begins, it's going to be because God has planted his people in government. God has planted his people in the families to lead the families, to be holy families, so the children know what to grow up and be like. But please do not miss the idea that it is deeply spiritual and the land is healed when the church clean up.
Absolutely. I don't think we can agree less to that. It still comes back to the church, A spiritual fight is better waged by those who are spiritual, right? So, and if Dr. Morgan is saying, and by the way, Dr. Morgan is not only in Jamaica, right here in Canada too, same thing. The church is done, it's just defragmented. Like, and you know, Jesus said something, and there's a reason he said, and I think this is one of the reasons. He says, people will know you are my disciples if you love one another. That's it. Like, you know, so I mean, where do we start from? I often say the church, they are quick to have a Bible school, but I think they need to have a leadership school first. I think they need to have a business school first. A business school, a leadership school, a political school, and then a theology school. You need to understand what is going on here to be able to relate. So anyway, I mean, this is not about bashing the church. Of course, we're all members of the church. The church is ours. We are basically bashing ourselves, so to speak. We are just encouraging those who are in positions of authority in what they call the church, and to rise up and to understand that, yes, this is a spiritual fight for the soul of Jamaica, for the soul of Jamaica. Yeah. And if Satan grabs the soul finally, then there'll be no more Jamaica, really. It could still be there, but it just, you know, and we see that happen, by the way, in Africa too, in other parts of the world where, you know, it goes after, I often say this, I said, on your way to the top, if you encounter no opposition, you are heading the wrong direction. So, but once you encounter that opposition, what do you do about it? So again, I second what Alvin said. Same thing we're all saying here. Back to you, Mr. Ellis.
2 Chronicles 7:14. Well, I'm hearing the heart of the problem of the hearts. I'm hearing the spiritual problem. I'm hearing Mr. Alvin they speak about the Christ giving attention to the flawed, the failed, the fearsome, the rejected. And Pastor Church had a motto that says, no perfect person allowed. And I think we're seeing indications here now of where we ought to go as a people, out of the four walls, into the space, into the communities, and really, you know, if we who are called by his name, really take account for what we can do, the land can be healed. Is there anybody who wants to jump in and share a thought or response? I've heard from we hear from all the three speakers. We've heard from Pastor Tucker. Anybody in the audience, you can join the chat on Facebook, on YouTube, or in the chat here and share comments. We also want to give away a book, a copy of Alex Ihama's book, a copy of Alvin Day's book, and a bottle of wine. But I want to ask somebody to share now. Anybody, if you want to win a copy of If Capitalist Can Fly, So Can I, remind us of one point that you got from Alvin Day's talk and get a copy of the book, just like that. And if you can give me a nugget from Alex Ihama, you can get a copy of The Mystique of Leadership. Any takers? You can text your responses in, and if you are considered a winner, you can get your prize at 85 West Road in Trenchtown. You have to come to Trenchtown. Yes. You have a comfy at Trenchtown.
There's an answer. Somebody said something about something that I added here. Did you see the text? The first thing I saw.
Let's see.
Mrs. Chung said, Alvin said the man was made from dirt. So Mrs. Chung wins Alvin's book.
Okay.
Yes.
Mrs. Chung, you got the book.
And then Dr. Owen Roach. Yes. Dr. Owen Roach said leadership is the spirit. That's what I said. And so
okay.
My book.
So Alvin's book goes to Mrs. Chung and Alex's book goes to Dr. Roach. Who gets the bottle of wine? You want the bottle of wine? Remind me of something that Dr. Morgan said. And you're gonna collect the book and the wine in Trenchtown, 85 West Road, at the AIR office. You have to come at Trenchtown.
Right.
Courtney Brown says we need to work close with our young. Is he correct, Dr. Morgan?
Where did the statement go?
It's in the chat there. Let me see.
We need to work close with our young boys, inspire them, help them to be good followers, and finally become great leaders.
Is that our win, Dr. Morgan? And Courtney Jump also has a response in there. Can you read that one first, please, Kamik?
Courtney Jump said, Compassion Association, is it supposed to be selfless heart?
Selflessness. Yes, we can give that, can accept that.
Okay, so by Monday, come to 85 West Road, Mrs. Morgan, Dr. Roach, and Courtney, and collect your prizes. Can we get a final word from all three speakers?
Wait, Blacko, before we go to a final word, let's go to the question and answer. Let's return there quickly. John Chambers asked a question, and I believe that this question is directed to Dr. Morgan. He said, the picture at the start showed poverty. How can we get Jamaica to look like Dubai? Where does the church fit in? You can go ahead, Dr. Morgan.
Well, can I just use this opportunity as my final comment?
Sure.
Right, so I will just encapsulate this. I am not sure that looking like Dubai is the only indicator of a country that's successful. I think when Jamaica looks like this line in the national pledge, so that Jamaica under God may increase in beauty, fellowship and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. It's not just a materialistic expression. And that is why Alvin Day has correctly diagnosed that Jamaica does not have an insufficiency of minerals, doesn't have an insufficiency we are a blessed and endowed country, but Jamaica has an insufficiency of leadership. Leadership that models before the behavior, before the country, before the fatherless young man, to model it, not just to talk at it, not just to speak from the pews, but to model it, and just to listen to our young people, that just because they don't choose the same path to success as you do, don't mean that they won't find happiness and success. Now, I gotta tell you two statistics though with the Dubai question, and it's that by the GEM report, Global Entrepreneurial Monitor report, Jamaican women have ranked as high as number 3 in terms of nascent entrepreneurship in the world. Jamaican women. And the very men that are populating our various cemeteries have ranked as number 10. The policies of this country and where we invest. For instance, in Trenchtown, the biggest government investment is in Zozo and SOE. It's not in these things you're talking about, like trade schools or whatever. And therefore, I will end by saying this. Every day, I see something that encourages me about this country. I see a Michelle Chung with the honey bun. I see a Junior Tucker. I hear a Owen Roach. Trust me when I say this, whether it's on the track or in academia or in diplomacy, or it's in the level of remittances, which only Israel tops Jamaica per capita. This is one special place. And I make up my mind that every engagement, I will never leave a depressing picture of Jamaica. If I was not Jamaican, I would fake it. I would fake it. Nothing happens till a Jamaican arrives. When Butch Stewart was alive, I sold him on the idea. They have this catamaran and they go out with these people. And I said, I need some employment for some Jamaicans. He said, what? I said, I'm going to dub them party starters. You see, when they get on the catamaran, sunbathing stop. Now, it did cost the company a lot in terms of them drinking the most expensive liquor. But nothing starts till a Jamaican arrive. Oh God, what a blessed country. What a blessed country. Last week, I was out on a farm, Blacker. We were in,
yeah.
in 2,200 acres of onion. Right here in Jamaica. Let me tell you, Jamaica have the best entrepreneurs in the world. From the littlest to the big, we have a lot to celebrate. And as the Governor General said, there is nothing so wrong with Jamaica that which is good about Jamaica can't solve. God bless you all. Have a good night.
If you're not a Jamaican, fake it. Do like Alex Ihama and marry a Jamaican. Right? Final comment, Alvin Day. Final comment, Alex Ihama.
All right. Yes, wonderful. Thank you. First of all, my appreciation to all of the leaders, Dr. Morgan, Blacka, Ellis, and the wonderful members of the Trenchtown community who made this possible. This dialogue, this conversation is critical. I'm really grateful for what I've learned and been able to listen to the great Alex Ihama, Henley Morgan, and other contributors. And I will tell you that, like Dr. Henley Morgan, I believe that Jamaica is the greatest place in the world. When I speak in the United States or in Europe or Asia, I big up Jamaica. Just like when I speak in Jamaica, I big up Frankfield, the country where I come from. And I know there's great hope for Jamaica. I know that Jamaica was destined for greatness when God, with his sense of humor, created it and dotted the ocean with it. And I know the solution is spiritual, but not only so, we talk about all of these concepts and all of these principles that are all right and all correct. We need to plant good people into positions of power. We need to make sure that we have the church being led by people who know how to lead. We need to do all of these strategic and visionary things. But it comes down, for me, in addition to all of that, to one solitary place. It's the putting on your own mask first. Yeah. Jamaica is going to be better. It is up to you, every single one of the 50, 60, or however many people happen to be here today. It actually comes down to you and to me. It does no good for us to objectify and theorize and quote unquote intellectualize the issue and talk about it as a reporter would who writes a newspaper article. What is required is that I am convicted of that set of principles that are being violated in Jamaica, and that I incorporate the solutions thereto, that I behave in a way that is contrary to the thing that I don't like. There is a neurosis that happens when someone is kidnapped, where the kidnapped person actually falls in love with the kidnapper from having spent so much time, from being bonded by pain. And there is a fear I have, a concern I have, that Jamaica is so familiar with the thing it hates that Jamaicans who hate it become the thing that they hate. It's a strange neurosis. The solution to Jamaica and the ability of Jamaica to live up to its greatest potential and fulfill Vision 2030, vision being so important according to Alex, and we all know this, we agree with him. The solution is every single one of us, in our homes, the way we treat our spouse, the way we treat our children, the way we deal with our neighbors, and when the neighbors fall and we don't cross on the other side, hello somebody, and the way we deal with our own thought life and our mind, and the way we resist temptations and look for virtue in our own life, not to impress anybody like the scribes and Pharisees did on the outside, but to impress our own soul so that God who looks on the inside can say, thou good and faithful servant. It is the extent to which every single one of us begins to be a fire and a light on the inside that Jamaicans will find a path that they can be following, because we have a whole lot of talk happening in Jamaica. I've never seen a nation with so much talk radio. Jeez and peace. Everybody talking about everything. I want to find a podium to talk about things, but it is really up to you. I challenge every single person who took your time to listen to this today to go home and be different at home, for your children, for your wife, for your family, for your neighbors, and for your positions of power in corporate life and in business. And to be true, the arbiter, the measurement of this is how pleased is God with your highest performance. And when you and I turn, God is on his way to healing the nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Dean David is saying we need to miss that one. Final word, Sir Alex.
Yes, I mean, again, thank you to Dr. Henley Morgan. I know your heart is just beautiful and outstanding. I mean, what else can I add to you when you said if you were not Jamaican, you fake it? So I think that really confirms it. But when you said that, I was thinking of me. I'm faking my Jamaican. I always say, "Why go on?" They're like, "Nah, you're not Jamaican." But let me say this: when I came, since I started to come to Jamaica, there was one. I came, I had a conference, and my assistant told me and said, "Oh, when you're flying tomorrow?" He says, "There's you keep telling people to come to the hotel. We have almost 60 people on the list who want to see you." And I said, 60? He said, yes. I said, well, even if I was to stay another week, I couldn't. And I told her this. I said, send a message out, an email, WhatsApp, whatever, to all of them and say, sorry, I can't do one-on-one, but they should all meet me at the hotel at the Pegasus that day. This was a like 3-hour difference, like 3 hours. I think it was like 1 o'clock. And I said, if they can meet us at 4, 5 o'clock, then I'll just see everybody. And I did not expect that within that short time, people will make that effort. But that day, almost everybody showed up in less than 2 hours. And it confirmed something I want to tell you. Jamaicans are the hungriest people I've ever met. Hungry for knowledge, hungry for development, hungry for direction, hungry for transformation. You have, I mean, what is, we're here trying to make people hungry. These people, they are just looking for just leadership, example. So when you have people that are hungry like that, it says those who hunger and thirst, they will be fed. They will be, right? So I think everybody on the line here today, if we take what Alvin just said, go home, take one, just one or two, go home, transform your life. And let your kids see that. Let your neighbors see that. It will begin to grow. And Mother Teresa said, we should all be, if you sweep your house, the whole city will be clean. So there's nothing I can add to what's been said other than I know, and I refuse to accept. I refuse to accept that Jamaica is doomed. I believe that we are going to have a generation of leaders. we have so much people out there doing our program, and some of them are on the line. Some of them are doing very well. I see them on social media. These are young people coming up to fill the gap, the void that unfortunately the older generation has left. And again, I close with what Alvin said. This is a spiritual fight, right? Our fight is not against flesh and blood. We have to recognize that, right? So, and you cannot confront a spiritual fight with a pen or with a physical attempt. You can first confront it from a spiritual perspective. I'm honored to have been included in this conversation. I love my Jamaica, and I already have my ticket waiting. The moment the skies open up, that's the first nation I'll be visiting from Canada. So I'll see you guys when I see you. God bless you.
Wonderful. And Mr. Ellis, I know that there was a question about empowerment in Jamaica that I didn't address. So perhaps you can talk about opportunities for us, perhaps Mr. Ihama and I coming together and doing something that will continue the flame of empowerment and right thinking and leadership in Jamaica. So Alex, are you open to that, for us to do something once the skies open up?
I'll be honored to do that with you, my brother.
Absolutely, because we feel this with a passion. And so, Mr. Ellis, if you would think about this, Dr. Morgan, how we might do that. And we're thinking right now in this moment, not of a money-making endeavor, but a way to start a great conversation and incorporate my incredible manager, Captain Calvin Hunter, who makes things happen, is the brains of the operation. We would be happy to begin a process. And we've done a number of processes of coaching and mentorship that are just waiting for capacity to expand. So I leave that with you, Mr. Ellis. I leave that with you, Dr. Morgan. How can we answer that question about resources for leadership development and empowerment in Jamaica?
Absolutely.
Not to
go ahead, Doc.
But I have said to both of you gentlemen that one of the ways the one gift that Jesus is very jealous about and he reserves for himself is omnipresence. I mean, I have prayed to him that I could be in 3 places at the same time. He said to me, you wouldn't know how to handle it. So one of the ways we do it in French, we offer an MBA degree in social entrepreneurship. Maybe the only community in the whole Caribbean that offers an MBA, where we teach people how to leverage community assets. And I'm looking to work with you guys in terms of the MBA in social entrepreneurship, which we're going to be offering at Excelsior Community College, going very well, and also hopefully at UTEC. So we're not just promising this, we're going to do it. Thank you.
So let me jump in there. Sorry for a minute, but I that's great, Doctor, and I know what you're saying. You said that before, but what I'm feeling from Alvin is perhaps, and you can add this to it, have those movements in, I don't know, Montego Bay, like split the country into regions and have those things go on right one after the other, like spark a fire that literally spreads across the main cities. Right, whether it's Kingston on Friday, this city on Saturday, literally the whole, and that's how you create an army. Really, it becomes a movement. It's just a movement. Yeah.
And Alex, by the way, what you're saying is exactly right. We have done it, and the only reason it's not happening right now is that it has been sort of a resource-intensive thing for us to organize. But we began with the Governor General's request for us to go around the nation and have these massive public things where people don't pay. We jammed out the hall at Jamaica College that was designed to hold 1,100 people, and close to 2,000 people came. Dignitaries couldn't make it inside. And then we asked people if they wanted additional coaching to sign a little piece of paper. And we got over 1,000 pieces of paper, handwritten, that we had then to collate and organize and find out where they lived. And we set up little cell groups, like a church cell group, where 5 to 7 people would get together once a week for 9 weeks, going through the principles of if caterpillars can fly, so can I. And Captain Calvin is on the line, and he can tell you there were remarkable, dramatic successes, breakthroughs in people's lives. and people gladly stand up and talk about how they found themselves unemployable, and now one lady is a star on the radio. People went all the way from biting their nails to not doing it anymore, to stop smoking, to having a healthier life, and so forth. And so the model works. We couldn't do it because when you give away something for free, it costs you money to do it. So we just needed the resources and others coming together to make it happen. But remarkable breakthroughs happen when we do what you're talking about. We've proven it in Jamaica, and yes, Jamaicans are hungry for that.
Yeah.
The first question that was asked after the speaker spoke was from Pastor Junior Tucker, and he asked the how question. And we are getting a number of answers to the how and the what next. The planning committee had in fact discussed already a part 2 of this engagement. Somebody asked in the chat, what about the movie from Trenchtown? That movie about Trenchtown needs to be written, right? Starring Junior Tucker and Blacker Ellis and our family stories. So we're hearing and seeing the how and the what next. It's a brilliant beginning happening right here. Pastor Tucker Church is having a thing called Man Cave on the Father's Day weekend, again for men. So we're beginning a moment of saying, let's as men talk about leadership, about moving forward, about refusing to accept, as Brother Ihama says, all the negatives and moving into something else. Oh my goodness. Let's now invite Bishop Ron Sullivan to just bring it to a close with the vote of thanks and to talk about the church's building project and the GoFundMe, and let's move from thoughts and ideas to something positive, tangible, and practical now. Bishop Rowan, your time, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ellis. I want to say thanks to everyone who joined us this evening on this platform as we discuss issues relating to men and leadership. I will not speak extemporaneously. I've written down, so I'm going to go through everything. First of all, to Mr. Alvin Day, I really was impressed with your speech. It begins at home, and we must learn to lead ourselves, work on ourselves first, put on our own masks first, and children do not listen to what we say, rather they listen to what we do. Leadership is followership, Dr. Morgan. Leadership is transformative, motivating, and inspiring. And of course, it takes cash to care, compassion, association, selflessness, and a heart. I want to thank Pastor Junior Tucker for coming in and to give his comments, and the musical presentations from the T-Band, Agent Sasko. I also now want to turn my attention to Mr. Ihama, who spoke about igniting the spirit of leadership. You must have a vision for your nation, have a passion for social justice, and a mission to man up. Those were some of the nuggets that I got out of these wonderful presentations. And I also want to take time now to thank the tech team. I texted them earlier and I said to them, boy, this is so wonderful. I use Mr. Ellis's word, wow, you know, and they said to me, it is because of your leadership why we were able to do this. And I told them, you're making me cry, because I know I could not do half of what I heard Garth instructing Alvin earlier to do in order to get running. And I really want to say tonight, the committee who planned, I'm really very impressed and I'm blessed. And I want to say to you guys, I know the best is yet to come. I sat here for a moment and I said, wow, this could have been done in the national arena were it not for COVID-19. Can you imagine? I want to thank our MC for leading the presentations and for leading us, and the poems that came from him. Wonderful work. And to our member of parliament, he left, but I want the records to show that I did say thanks to him for taking the time to come and to share with us. I think I've written everything, and I hope I've not left anybody out. My wife always says to me, don't call names because you may leave people out, but I want to say thanks to everybody for being a part of this. Now, as you are aware, Dr. Morgan has shown you some pictures of Jamaica then and now. We are embarking on a massive building project because we want to build a sanctuary in Trenchtown to worship the Lord. And we want to ask you at this time, brothers and sisters, do not be afraid to pledge and to give your donations and your contributions to help us to build this work, this church, this great church. As you can see on your screen, the artist's impression of what it should look like. And we are going to embark on it, and we're going to ensure that we build it. And we think that when we do this, it will lift the community. And one of the things that we want this citadel to do is to be an era where the community can also have ownership and people can come in. Now, I'm not coy to say if Mr. Day wants to sponsor and build one section of it, I will not be coy to call it the Alvin Day balcony. I would not be coy to say the Alex Ihama Center of Excellence in one of the rooms. I will not be coy to put that because you have made your contributions. So I want you to look at it, and I want you to pledge, and I want you to give, and I also want you to pray with us as we try to build that sanctuary to the glory of God and for the benefit of our community. Thank you so much. The Lord bless you.
Beloved, this was love, and we made it. A famous Jamaican say, every hoe have stick a bush, every long road have bend. Hot sun have shady tree, and the longest prayer have amen. 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 Amen.
Amen.
Blessings all. And we're going to also build the Black Ellis wing in that sanctuary.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There you go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Alvin Day, Alex Ihama, Dr. Morgan, panelists, committee, blessings all.
And the blessings when you send them youth, well, if God's things could arrest. Put your first